missed the they didn't have it last week, but I missed the one before. I don't know what I did yesterday.
All right. You guys ready?
It's been a bit,
Yeah.
It's to round up a few people.
It's 5:03. I think there's some people here that are going to make their way in, hopefully.
We need a bell.
Yeah. The Bitcoin bell?
Yeah. Bitcoin bell.
That's all right. I'm used to, the disrespect of people walking in after the fact. I don't let it affect my ego any longer. I don't get all bent out of shape. I just let it ride. Everything's cool.
And you go home and punch your pillow.
Yes, I go home and scream. And,
Yeah. Better man than I.
Yes. But on the surface, as far as everyone else is concerned, I just hold it all together.
Quite
Yeah. All right. Well, after a long hiatus, we are getting back together again. It's good to be back in Bali, I must say. Feels good. I know a lot has been happening in my absence, so we're going to catch up a little bit tonight. Hopefully you can give me the scoop on what's been going on. And yeah, there's a few things in the news to talk about. Oh, we've got a very special guest tonight. The founder of Cointelegraph, Tony Lane Casserly, has been touring around with Stephen Milliner today, checking out the Bitcoin economy we have here in Ubud. And I think they're here. I saw them earlier, but maybe they'll walk in a minute. And I would love to pepper her with questions. First of all, she's a woman. Women in Bitcoin are rare.
We're women.
Well, you guys are like you guys are the avant-garde. You're the
goddesses. We're the bit goddesses.
Yes, the Bitcoin goddesses. We have plenty of them in Ubud. But she actually started this business and is interacting every day with the movers and shakers of the Bitcoin world. So I think it'd be interesting. Hopefully we can hit her up with some questions. We've got a bit of a Bitcoin health check. I haven't really been following Bitcoin as closely as I normally do when we do these things every week. So we're going to take a look at what's been going on while I've been away with Bitcoin. We've got, let's see, Bitcoin version 13. Lucky 13. Did you guys talk about this already? The new version of Bitcoin has been released.
Yeah.
And it's got a few little snaggles to talk about. A lot of nerdy stuff we're not going to talk about. But there's a few interesting things. At least we're going to try and make it interesting. And we've got the iPhone 7. Apple iPhone, maybe you've heard of it.
Without
iPhone 7.
The headphone jack.
Who has theirs? Where's mine? Oh, I don't use Apple. That's right. Yes, I stopped using Apple when they took the Bitcoin wallets out of the store, and their theme of censorship continues. The iPhone 7 has no headphone jack. Did you hear about this?
Outrageous.
I don't know. I think that, well, you must still be able to use headphones, but I guess it's a different kind of jack. So the jack we're all used to, the one where you can buy like a $3 pair of headphones and you can hear your phone, like no go with the iPhone 7. So
and they're two pods that you can easily lose for $160.
Oh, do they cost $160?
$160. I guess that's US.
They just kind of hover in your ear.
They hover, really?
Yeah. And then the first stiff breeze. They're gone.
Well, not only do they not have headphones, but they also don't have Dash. They have officially censored the Dash coin from appearing inside of apps in the App Store. So we're going to talk about that. Good old Apple, keeping us all safe from ourselves. But anyway, let's kick things off. It's the filter number 91. Today's Tuesday, September 13th, 2016. Let's see what we got here. I'm going to share my screen with the folks at home. Let's see if I can do this.
Does the iPhone 6 have is that cryptocurrency friendly?
Well, yes and no. Let's talk about that when we get to the iPhone 7 discussion. Maybe someone will actually know the story, because I've been away from Apple for a little while, but I do find the topic interesting. Anytime the man is trying to censor me, I get all rankled.
Good on you.
Okay, so you can be rankled with me.
Go nuts.
Okay, so everyone at home should be seeing what we see up here. Here we go. Bitcoin filter, the number 91, Bitcoin leap of faith I don't know why I called it Bitcoin Leap of Faith. I usually don't know what I'm going to talk about, so I try and come up with some nondescript kind of nebulous title that maybe I can find some sort of handle on when I actually have the show, but this time I kind of struck out. But that's a nice picture. Not Bali, but could be Bali.
Yeah.
Seems like it might be Bali. Anyway, moving on. Like I said, today we've got the founder of Cointelegraph. Have you guys seen this website, Cointelegraph? It's the one that always has the crazy cartoons. That's one of the things I want to ask her about is, does she have someone like just sitting around drawing cartoons all day? Because all these stories have their own cartoon.
There's an app for that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Maybe she just maybe it's all automated.
Yeah.
Anyway, hopefully she'll pop back in here in a minute. We can pepper her with questions.
Yeah.
But her name is Toni Lane Casserly, and hopefully she'll be back in a moment. We can run a dynamic agenda today and pepper her with questions later. We are coming to you live from Hubud, the premier co-working space in Bali, the beautiful bamboo building right in the monkey forest, across the street from all of the monkeys. And they are nice enough to give us an air-conditioned room every week. So they're big supporters. They've been letting us meet here for free for 2 years now. So if you find yourself in Bali, hopefully you will come join us in person every Tuesday night, 5 o'clock. And think about joining Ubud while you're here too. It's a cool place to work.
It's very cool.
Yeah. All right, when we are not together, don't mind my personal messages here. When we are not together in person, we are online in our Facebook group, this public group, Bitcoins in Bali, where we post interesting stories that relate to either Bitcoins or Bali, or what was one? Somebody posted something about a conspiracy theory. Where was that? You never know what's going to show up here.
I was at the
But it's always there. There's the top 10 conspiracy quotes. We never know where the Bitcoin conversation is going to take us. But when we're not together, we have the conversation here online. So hopefully you will all think of something while you're out researching Bitcoin and how the world works, and maybe you'll be inspired to post something here. If you do post something here, then odds are we will talk about it when we get together in person. That's how the whole thing works. We post things here, and then when we get together in person, we can argue about it face to face. Local news, we've got Bitcoin 101 coming up Saturday, September 24th. This one is in English. We have to make that distinction because we've been having Bitcoin 101 or getting started with Bitcoin in Indonesian language as well. So the kind folks at bitcoin.co.id are helping us with that aspect of things, promoting to their membership. They've got about 30,000 members, and they have put together a whole program that's more kind of geared towards the culture of Indonesia and the people that show up. And so they're actually offering a class in Indonesian as well. That's here under the Pengantar Bitcoin. But anyway, we have to make that distinction happily because we've got multiple languages. How sophisticated are we now that we're offering this community outreach in multiple languages? I think it's very exciting. But anyway, if you haven't been to Bitcoin 101, I think everybody in the room has been to Bitcoin 101. But maybe you can tell your friends, and maybe you can just come. Even if you've been before, you can come and help answer questions and I don't know.
It's great.
Create a sense of community around what we've got going on here. So anyway, that's September 24th. You can register on this page by just hitting this register button. Let us know you're coming because we've only got room for about 15 people in this room, and the classes do fill up. We've also got our YouTube channel, and for all the folks that can't be with us here in person, we do this thing on the on YouTube where we broadcast live, and we also make it available after the fact. So check out our YouTube channel. That's there. We're also on Twitter, #BitcoinsInBali, which we've been trying to make Bitcoins in Bali hashtag a thing for the last 2 years. I don't know if it's quite taken off yet, but we got the Bitcoins in Bali hashtag on Twitter. And hey,
oh, welcome here.
Nice to see you. It's been a little while.
Yeah.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in, guys. we've only just begun. You've missed all the fluff, and now we're getting to the serious stuff. I saved it for you. Tony, I did tell these guys that you were going to be here today, so we might pepper you with questions a little later on.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're all very intrigued by what happens at Cointelegraph and how you got started. And, okay, all right. When you least expect it, I'll hit you up. All right, so we're still talking about local news. We just announced the next Bitcoin 101, which is happening the 24th, and this community outreach, this Bitcoin 101 community outreach, is part of making this Bitcoin economy happen here in Ubud. We've been basically trying to, well, first of all, we reach out to merchants and we try and get them to, offer their food and scooters and excursions with Bitcoin. But then you've got the other side of the economic equation, and that is people spending Bitcoin, right? So that's why we have the Bitcoin 101. We create our own spenders, and we try and get merchants to accept Bitcoin. And the result is this exciting graph you see in front of you, which is a real-time view of the Bitcoin economy. I know it's not very, it's really hard to see, but this is the number of Bitcoin transactions per day in the Bitcoin economy in Ubud. So we have a high of, I think this is like 20 transactions, something like that. And we have a low of 0 transactions. So we're trying to even that out, trying to but on a weekly basis, we've got dozens of Bitcoin transactions happening in the Bitcoin economy here in Bali. And well, the more 101s we have, the more merchants we get that are accepting Bitcoin, the greater will be the economic activity. And I think, well, the whole reason I'm interested in this experiment we have here is to create some resilience around money for the community. Getting people used to using a different kind of money, a fair kind of money, a money that still works, even if all the ATMs go down in Ubud, Bitcoin will still function. So anyway, it's diversification, it's resilience, and yeah, that's what I think is really interesting about what we have going on here in Ubud. So I posted this in the group so you can see it better when you log into Facebook. But we have had a few. Hey, welcome, come on in. Yeah. Yeah, we have had a few 0 transaction days. So anyway, if you are a Bitcoin consumer, get out there and spend your Bitcoins. All right, what's next? Let's take a look at the price, guys. We find ourselves in Indonesia, so we always look at the Indonesian price first. From our friends at bitcoin.co.id, the biggest Bitcoin exchange we have going here in Indonesia. According to them, the last price paid for 1 Bitcoin was 7,872,000 rupiah for 1 Bitcoin. That was up over 8 earlier. We've had a little bit of a dip in the price lately. Let's take a look at the US dollar price. This is Bitcoin average. $609.26. And like I said, that's a bit down. Here's the Bitcoin time machine for the last week in terms of price. It was getting very exciting 5 or 6 days ago when we were approaching 630. I was showing Camille the price on a regular basis. Like, I've got it on my phone, and I find it very interesting to just look. Like, even if I haven't looked at it in 30 seconds, I like to look again. And I think I'm satisfied, but then the price might change again, and then I have to look again. And if it changes, then I tell Camille about it, if she's there. If there's nobody there, then that's really frustrating. Anyway, this is the Bitcoin time machine for the last week, and you can see we had a big dip in the price there. When was that? Like in the middle of the night, between the 11th and 12th? Anybody know?
Sunday night, yeah.
Anybody know? Anybody have any theories as to why the Bitcoin price took a little vomit there? I don't know either. But I like to.
September 11th?
September 11th. It was September 11th. Coincidence? I think not.
Conspiracy.
Yes, but I like to imagine that there's another positive trend line, like working its way back up. But I might be
like the
imagining
dips,
that.
because that's when I should have bought. Like,
Yeah.
Paying attention when it talks
BTFD.
to it.
They wait. BTFD.
What's that?
Buy the dip.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what the F stands for now, but I know it's buy the dip is what it means. All right. Bitcoin volatility. Boy, we really are nerdy around here when we look at volatility every week. But I think it's very exciting. These are very exciting numbers because they're below 2%, right? Because we work with vendors, vendors care if in a 30-day period their Bitcoins are worth 5% more, 5% less, especially if their profit margin is 5% or less. Because well, if they lose that money, they have a perception that Bitcoin is not a good thing to use for commerce. So we keep an eye on this. And one of the reasons this is a good number is because, well, let's take a look. What do I want to do? Let's take a look at the last 6 months. You can see we had some major league volatility up around 5% recently. And we're back down here to something a little bit more normal. And if you look at the entire history of volatility, if you were to draw like a trend line through this graph, you could see that the volatility is actually going down over time, which eventually should make Bitcoin a very stable price vis-a-vis other currencies. Wouldn't it be nice if, you know, over the course of your entire lifetime, the prices of things didn't change very much? You know, you don't have to be that old guy that says, in my day, a hamburger was $1. That whole thing goes away. Not to mention like your savings retains its value, you know, you can retire, that kind of thing. Anyway, all of that is related to this volatility discussion. That's why we talk about it every week. What else? All right, Bitcoin health check. This is a live picture of the blockchain. One of the cool things about Bitcoin is we can actually see Bitcoin happening as it happens. It's so exciting. Look at that. It's dynamic. It's changing. It's try to do this with a US dollar. It just doesn't work as well. Anyway, what's interesting about this, I go here every once in a while when I'm curious. This is kind of a view on Bitcoin health. This blue area is the number of transactions that might go into a block, and this yellow area is the value of all the Bitcoins that are in that block. So the Bitcoin utilizes a blockchain, right? And in every block of the blockchain are all the transactions from the last 10 minutes. But you know, the part of the controversy we've been talking about for the last year or so is this block size debate. I don't know if you can see it here. It's getting cut off, but essentially what you can see is the mempool, which is where all the transactions that are waiting to be inserted into the next block. There's like 2.5 megs of transactions ready to go into the next block, but every block is only 1 meg large, so it can be a problem. The blockchain catches up after a while, but the entire system is becoming more and more sophisticated. The miners suck up transactions that have a higher transaction fee associated with them, and these days, if you don't attach a high enough fee to your transaction, it's possible it could get stuck in limbo, could get stuck in this blue bar and never make it into the next Bitcoin block. So anyway, this is like a very good graphical representation of that whole thing that's happening, and especially given all the problems we've had recently about Bitcoin scalability, you can really visualize the scalability problem at this on this trade block page. All right, which graph is this? I can't even read the title on this thing.
Transactions, time span,
I think this
show
is,
data points.
yeah, I think this is the total number of transactions. So let me see if I can get a shorter time period. So yeah, you can see, I think these graphs are worthless. I don't even know if we can spend time on these. Basically, you know, we're kind of maxing out at 250,000 transactions per day. Anyway, you can see, if we look at the entire graph, you can see that the number of transactions have kind of plateaued. Like it was growing, and now that we're at the 1 megabyte limit, you know, this looks like it's going up and down, but if you were to draw a line through this, you would see that it's very flat. So Bitcoin is maxed out. we are at our limit. And the reason I'm calling our attention to this today is because we're going to talk about Bitcoin version 13. Lucky 13, which has a few solutions for us, which may or may not work, and are ready, or maybe not quite ready just yet, but we're trying. Anyway, anybody here have problems with Bitcoin transactions, like being delayed or not getting cleared? Or
I know.
that's been my experience as well. Is even though there is all this talk about Bitcoin having problems, I have experienced like where it might take an hour or two to get its first confirmation, like when the mempool is totally jammed, but it always eventually makes it onto the blockchain. So anyway, I know that we can't live in this world forever, but given that there's all of this stress on the system, the fact that it still works, maybe there's a delay, but it ends up being correct, I think is pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing that the whole thing is still going strong after all this time and after all this popularity. You know, it could have been a victim of its own success, but we're still chugging along. This graph is the number of total Bitcoins in circulation, and one of the things that happened while I was away was we had the halving, right? Did you guys have a halving party while I was away? Did you get together and
We did.
party like it was 1999?
We went to the Onion.
Yeah, you went to the Onion?
Yeah.
Ah, awesome. But I thought it was interesting. You know, there's so much about Bitcoin that's transparent, that's available to everybody at all times, and you can see the halving that took place. Can you see how the slope of this curve gets more flat here? Can you see that?
Yeah.
See how Bitcoin, there's 50 new Bitcoins, 50 or 25? 25 new Bitcoins every 10 minutes. And then we had the halving, and is it now 12 and a half every 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see how the graph has kind of changed there because Bitcoins aren't being created as quickly. Here's also a representation of the halving. Does anybody know what this graph is? This is Bitcoin miner revenue. So this is the money that Bitcoin miners are making. They made a lot just in advance of the halving, and then now they're back down here. And this is a bit of a flat line, but you can see that it's not that bad. I mean, I guess whatever percentage change, it's probably a little bit painful for some of the miners, but they knew it was coming, and it has stayed flat after the halving. So I'm assuming that not all the miners have gone out of business just yet. But it's interesting that we can see a representation of the halving taking place here. All right. Let's take a look at user agents. I know that sounds fascinating, but what this is a representation of all the Bitcoin software that's running out there. We've got about, I think, 5,195 Bitcoin nodes running in the world. This is supporting the Bitcoin network. And what software are those guys running? That's what this user agents graph is telling us. And you can see that the majority are still on, oh wait, what's this light gray area is version 13. Right, so what's 13? About 16.5%. So I don't know exactly when 13 was released, but we've already got about 16% of the network using the new version. The majority of the rest of the people are using some version of version 12. That's the purple and the dark gray. One thing that's interesting about this graph is we've got this other category, which is 25%. What do you think? What do you think other means? Any idea? I don't really know either, but I presume that either, well, definitely it's going to be miners that have edited their software, right? Maybe they've just turned off the reporting aspect of what version they're using. But it's more likely that they have implemented their own version of Bitcoin mining software, right? The mining is a very complicated game these days. There's a lot of money involved, and it's a game of inches. And it's likely that they have written their own algorithms. They've actually modified the miner software so that it comports with the protocol, but makes decisions, a lot of decisions behind the scenes that maybe we're not aware of, or they don't want to make public. And that's about over 25% of the network. So kind of interesting.
But doesn't that take the standardization away?
Well, they have to comport to the standards of the protocol. But what they can do is they can, one thing that I've read about them doing is, you know, there's new Bitcoins every 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And all the while, when you know, there's all these people competing for the next block so that they can get the new Bitcoins. But if a mining operation, let's say that by chance they find a Bitcoin after like a minute and a half, what they can do is they can start looking for the next block on average about 8 minutes before the rest of the world. So instead of saying, hey, I found a block, they can instead of telling everybody about it, they can start looking for the next block, so it gives them an advantage. And then they've probably got lots of sophisticated algorithms that give them the odds of someone else finding a block in that time, right? So if they find something very early compared to the average, maybe they'll take a chance that they can find the next block before something happens. They could also, if somebody submits a new block, they can submit theirs directly afterward and then try and propagate their version of the blockchain more extensively throughout the network than their rival. So there's lots of highly sophisticated things miners can do, and you can bet they're doing it because there's so much money at stake. But yeah, they comport to the actual rules of the protocol, and they do something different behind the scenes. It'd be like if you know, you and I speak English, but I do all my thinking in, you know, Indonesian, right? But then we talk in English so you understand me. But I'm doing sneaky things, so, you know, in my own head that you don't even know about. That's the, yeah. All right. What's next? All right. So the major things in this 13 release is this thing called segregated witness, or SegWit, because segregated witness is a mouthful. Does anybody know what this segregated witness thing is? Well, remember we were talking about the blocks being full. These blocks, you know, they've got a 1 megabyte limit on the block size for Bitcoin. And that's a problem, right? We can only do about 3 or 4 transactions per second. And what this segregated witness, without telling you what it is, it's designed to increase the throughput as if the block size limit was 1.7 megabytes. So almost doubling the capacity of the Bitcoin network, because anybody in the room can correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I understand it is they take some information out of every transaction. That's the segregation. And so each Bitcoin transaction can be remarkably smaller. So you can get more transactions into the block. So you can get more transactions per block, more transactions per second or minute, and more people can have fun with Bitcoin. There's room for everybody in Bitcoin, right? Yeah, that's the idea. And but it's a major code revision. I mean, can you imagine being a software developer working on Bitcoin, and there's like millions of people that are just ready to like jump on you if you do something wrong? So you're trying to make things better, but you're working, and not only does the software have to be correct, but the way everyone reacts to the software has to be correct. We all saw what happened with the DAO, right? I mean, if you don't do things extremely carefully, then things can go wildly wrong. And they're introducing some very sophisticated functionality here. Now it's, you know, from what I've read, it's been widely tested, and it works. You know, the developers have tested it, and now they're releasing the actual code in the release, but it's not functional. It's still only functional on the testnet, and they might make it live in, this is version 13.0. They say they might make it live in 13.1. But for now, segregated witness is still a phantom upgrade that we have yet to see if it will actually work or not. But I hope it does work. I hope it's not only does it do that, it does some other things that are pretty amazing. With the ability to introduce new features to Bitcoin. It's got like a some sort of support for opcodes that allows the opcode introduction and then the validation of the opcodes. It's all built into the segregated witness upgrade, and I think it implements its own functionality that way. It won't actually be valid until 95% of the miners say this is okay. One interesting thing about that is Antpool, one of the largest Bitcoin miners, has said that they will not accept segregated witness unless there's a commensurate increase in the blockchain size. And I think Antpool controls like 17–18% of the network. So they've got de facto veto power over this this segregated witness thing. So
is this how they're trying to kill SegWit then? Because if it's going to basically make it not necessary for the block size to have to be increased, which requires a hard fork, is this basically Antpool's, like ironic way of saying that they don't want to have SegWit? Do you think?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if they're playing it close to the vest on why they're doing it, but yeah, they can pretty much hold everybody hostage unless the developers come back and say, well, instead of 95%, we're going to go with 80%. I mean, that's what makes Bitcoin fascinating, right? You've got all these little catty fights and soap opera stuff, and this is it's better than science fiction, this whole thing that's happening in our lifetime. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's interesting that they make that demand that the block size be increased as well. Question?
Yeah. So, as he said, there is no use of SegWit then. If the block size goes to 1.7, why do you need SegWit in the first place?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's two approaches to the problem. Make the block size larger or introduce this segregated witness. But any change requires consensus amongst the miners. So they did this thing where if you build it, they will come kind of thing. They've gone through all this trouble to make this functionality, but it won't be adopted unless there's consensus. So I guess the PR campaign begins now, right? But in the meantime, we've got a real scalability problem. Like something's got to give. Otherwise, Bitcoin will be relegated to, I think, an obscure niche payment mechanism if it can't overcome this. Well, it's got the scalability problem, and it's got the governance problem, right? The scalability problem is a manifestation of the governance problem. How do we decide together what we're going to do? And were the incentive structures way back when Satoshi did his implementation, did he get the incentive structures right? We don't know yet. Maybe it will be something that comes behind Bitcoin that gets maybe Bitcoin will die because of the governance question, which would be a real bummer, but it wouldn't take long for something to come behind Bitcoin and solve that governance problem and then be the one that fulfills the vision. So, I mean, the whole idea of Bitcoin is bigger than Bitcoin itself, and it might very well be something else that actually survives.
What sort of transaction info this SegWit is taking out?
I think it's the something to do with the signature or for the transaction itself. I'm sorry, I don't know enough about the technical implementation.
So does that miner has issues with that part of the game?
I haven't read that they have a problem with the implementation itself. It's more about the whatever solution to the scalability problem ultimately gets implemented. But I haven't seen it's been pretty universal, the support for segregated witness. Most people think it's a good idea, from what I can tell. But yeah, we shall see. in the meantime, we're all suffering from a full blockchain. If we went back and looked at those blocks again, you'd see that, I think it's getting cut off, but you can see that every block that gets created is almost 1 meg. I mean, they're just jamming every last transaction into those blocks. We're maxed out right now, so something's got to give. We'll see. We will see. All right. Oh, I thought this was interesting. I asked Google, what is segregated witness, and it gave me an answer. It wasn't a very good answer, but I just was excited that Google, cared enough to actually try, in this, it's got this, it's aware of Bitcoin and Bitcoin questions. So there's another, this is an article about segregated witness, but there's another thing that's also interesting is, already said all this stuff. Is it here? There's another piece of version 13 that allows when a new Bitcoin transaction is created, it propagates throughout the network more quickly. The payload of the message that informs the entire network of what's what is an order of magnitude faster, smaller, more efficient. And we've talked in the past about the Great Firewall of China and how most of the mining capacity is in China, so that when something occurs on one side of the Great Firewall of China, it takes a long time for the entire planet to get the update. And this mitigates that problem. It doesn't solve it, but it means that the entire, it's consensus reality, right? The blockchain is like everybody agrees on what the state of reality is at any given time. But at a certain moment, like when I'm a miner and I find a block, I've got to tell everybody that I found a block. And that, even though the speed of light is the speed of light, it still takes some time for all Bitcoin nodes to be aware of that change, and even more if it's behind a firewall. So this should make things, well, basically make that problem less of a problem. So, but again, it's a major code upgrade. These are major tweaks to the Bitcoin protocol, and we don't know exactly what's going to happen. So hang on to your hats. Come every Tuesday night. It's going to be interesting. All right. Okay, so on to the Facebook posts. This one. Now, I know that you guys talked with Rock Savant, right, when I was gone.
Yeah.
How did that? He was like a Steemit superstar from the early days of Steemit. Is that right?
Yeah.
How did that go? Like he just based. I know that he and I had conversations about Bitcoin, and then he must have taken the ball and run with it, found Steemit, but what did he share when he came?
Yeah, he had we had him about a month or so ago, and he talked a lot about just diving into it and how the money motivation was really starting to take his focus away from everything, including his upcoming marriage, as you see in the article below there.
So he was already aware of that kind of.
Yeah, but he was starting to hand his life over to Steemit to make as much money as possible as quickly as he could.
Yes, his lovely new bride was like, "Leave the Steemit alone. Come have dinner."
Exactly. He said he was usually writing between 11 p.m. and 3 in the morning.
Oh wow!
Like day in, day out. And so he was just, yeah.
He got the fever.
Yeah, he definitely got the fever. And in this article too, he talks about that.
Yeah.
And then now it looks like the price in Steam has really dropped. I'm not sure. I haven't been following the Steam price lately, so I wasn't sure at all about.
Me neither. I haven't really. I did sign up for an account, but it's been really on the periphery of my consciousness. But is anyone in the room doesn't know what Steemit is? Okay, so essentially it's an alternative to Twitter, Facebook, social media, and it's attached to another cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, but it's got its own token of value. And correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, guys, but what I thought was that if you instead of it being mined by a proof of work, if you create some good content and everybody likes it, then they pay you in Steemit. So that's how the coin comes into existence and how they pay new users. So it's like this cryptocurrency fueled journalism / posting. The idea being that if you write something that people like, that it represents work and thus can be paid, and that's how the coin is minted, basically. And then it circulates like Bitcoin circulates as currency. So there was a lot of buzz around this. Of course, everybody wants to like get off of Facebook, replace Facebook, and this is kind of we also have a problem these days with journalism, where people are paid to appeal to the lowest common denominator. So where I think as a society, we're looking for new ways to pay good journalists. And so this is a really intriguing idea, in my opinion. And so Rock, he's a guy who's lived in Bali, come to our meetings, hung out with us, jumped in with both feet and started writing, and was making like, what was it, like $1,500 an article at some point, $700-800 per article. And was made like over $100,000 based on his own writing, and then the increased value of the Steemit coin. And all of a sudden, I think he mentioned in the article, like in 20 days he made over $100,000 or something. And in the end, the Steemit that he had was worth, at some point it was worth $170,000. But somehow the value of Steem has changed, and also things have changed on how his articles get promoted within the system. So, the articles that used to garner $1,000 are now garnering like $3, and so the gravy train seems to have left him behind.
Well, when we had him here to meet, a lot of people at the meeting. I mean, we had a full complement of people here at the meeting, and most people did not have a good impression of Steemit and its future. And,
okay.
Things like
were they asking him tough questions, or because he was enthusiastic about it, right?
Yeah, but I mean, polite questions, but they were still asking him really tough questions about, is he sure that he's going to be seeing his money for his effort at the end of the day? When we're looking at a really high capitalization, I mean, Steemit was past Ripple for a while, I think, in capitalization, but they were still only like a few hundred or a few thousand people contributing to Steemit. There was too much of a gap between what they say the capitalization was and who was actually using the system. Some of our members, like Larry Jones's bullshit filters, were clogged, and they were like, "No, this is just not a good idea."
And that's probably
you need to be very, very careful. Play with it at your own risk. Be prepared to lose it all, but it was just not.
And that's probably when his Steem was worth $170,000, right? He could have taken that criticism to heart and cashed out.
Well, he did as much as he could.
Yeah.
Yeah. From what he was telling us, I mean, he was really being very careful as well too, to make sure he wasn't leaving too much in to see what was going to happen in 2 years' time when he could access the rest of the money that was being locked up.
Oh, is it? Oh, I didn't realize that was an aspect of it. The money is locked up for a time.
Power, Steem dollars. So we felt this was too much of a game, a bit of a money game, or kind of a Ponzi that.
Oh wow.
Pyramid scheme.
Well, I mean, is it over? Like, I mean, is it still? He published his last thing on Steem, so it's still happening, right?
Yeah, he still does, but he's just not doing it as nearly as daily as he was when.
But I mean, have people declared the Steemit experiment like dead, or is it still?
Near.
What's that?
Nowhere near.
Nowhere.
In fact, it's actually. Is this one on?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I actually got a message literally today from one of my friends who asked me if I wanted to come to, I think it was Berlin in 2017, October, to speak at the Steemit conference.
Uh-huh.
So Steemit is nowhere near dead because the community of people that find value in Steemit is really voracious. Like, I've been to 3 Steemit meetups, and Steemit is like the Steemit community. Steem is like Bitcoin, except the people don't suck and they aren't evil. Generally,
okay.
Like, it's like
sounds like my kind of crowd.
There's literally, like you were talking earlier about the Bitcoin drama. Like, that's the reason why I don't do things in the Bitcoin community anymore. It's because
it's that painful.
People are so they're so actually like violently dishonorable in the way that they treat others that it makes me like, for a while I was like just concerned about Bitcoin's future in general, because the community that I saw aggregating around it, I was like, wow, there are a lot of really, I didn't know what a bad person was. And then I like started doing things in the Bitcoin community, and I was like, wow, there's some really bad people here who run on fear, essentially, and who would hurt other innocent people for their own, who would throw a friend under the bus to pick up a penny.
Right.
And it's just not good. And the Steemit community is actually really, it's generally just like a bunch of travelers and bloggers and artists. And so many people believe in what Steemit is, that even if Steemit, like whatever happens to Steemit, this idea is not going anywhere. Like even if Steemit is just like a test protocol beta, like whatever's going to come after this. I mean, Reddit hired Ryan X Charles, who is at BitPay, specifically because they wanted Ryan to build real currency into Reddit Gold. And this is just monetized Reddit. So even if the market caps, I mean, economically, like I think more than anything, Steemit's an experiment. But I think you see like the community of people isn't going anywhere, and because they've done like the 2-year vesting period for so many things, I would be willing to bet that the majority of the community is willing to wait it out. Unless they come to the Steemit community from outside of Steem.
So that makes sense to me. Like the vesting period in order to, because I mean, these are all experiments in incentivization. Like, do you get the incentives right? And it's really tricky, cause especially when you're dealing with crypto and decentralized organizations, because you like set out the incentive structure and then you kind of set it free. And if you get it wrong, like, oh, we got to try something else. But I agree. It's like Bitcoin in that the idea is bigger than Bitcoin. But it's interesting your comments about community though, because like I mean, do the trolls just show up whenever something starts to become popular, or does it have to do with money? Or
no, let me explain why trolls exist. Like most people don't realize why this is pervasive in Bitcoin. And there's actually like very hard journalistic evidence on this matter that was reported by CoinFire, who actually CoinFire contacted me multiple times in a panicked frenzy when I was at a horror film festival in like at the estate where The Shining was filmed in Colorado.
So the horror continued with this phone call.
Yeah, and they were essentially saying like they were going through, they exposed, and I've been like, I've had to deal with, fraudsters being upset at my organization too. We had DDoS attacks on my site for just endless DDoS attacks because we exposed people for fraud. And CoinFire actually published a report where this guy just totally they're in CoinFire, I gotta say, as far as journalists go, they're the only people in the Bitcoin industry who hire real journalists. And I mean that in the matter of like hard-line investigative
like
journalism based on fact. Yes. And I have a lot of respect for their publication, although they've been totally, I mean, someone broke them, and they're the highest quality, I truly believe they're the highest quality news source in the industry. And the report that they published was a man who contacted them out of total guilt. And he said, listen, I've been hired by a corporation, and I forget what the name is. Like there's a certain name for this, like Flank or something. And they were like, okay. And he said, I'm manning over 100 Reddit accounts. And I have been hired by major corporations to go into forums in the Bitcoin community and intentionally antagonize and fragment the people in the community. And he gave the guys at CoinFire the usernames and passwords to over 50 of the accounts that he was manning, some of which had been active for 2 to 8 years prior to when this guy acquired them. They would buy them off of people who didn't use them for pennies. And then they'd essentially go in, make it look like a real person, and they would use these accounts to fragment the opinions in the Bitcoin community, creating psychological distance, because the strength of Bitcoin is the community. And any person who saw Bitcoin as a threat knew that. And people saw Bitcoin as a threat because the majority of the original like Bitcoin purists were like essentially like violently, verbally, and these are the role models that the industry is supposed to have, violently, verbally attacking institutions and the people who work in them. Like they're, you know, government is a broken institution. There are peaceful people who work in government who like have the right intention. And saying that every person who works at a bank is a criminal, a thief, and a liar who deserves to go to prison for life or like a murderer, it's just not like you're gonna create hate, and you don't destroy a dogma filled with hate and violence by creating a dogma with hate and violence. You just don't do that. And so those major organizations were threatened, and after being threatened, they hired people at a grassroots level to go into the Bitcoin community and fragment the opinion, which was the greatest, and it worked. It is the greatest psychological disturbance of an insurgency strategy I have ever seen
It's like
executed.
corporate psyops, or
It is. In my entire life. It is the most well done execution of this I've ever seen. And he's only one person. He's not the only one. And so that's why the troll mentality is generally pervasive in Bitcoin. They used a small minutia of the community against Bitcoin to essentially try and destroy it from the inside out. So these corporations could have some time to like get their bearings because they saw this technology as threatening, because the original purist approached everyone else like it's a threat. And when you do that, you automatically create tension, and that tension usually incites some kind of reaction, which is normally violent if you're using hate-based language to fuel your opinions. So that's generally why we have trolls, and they're everywhere and they're terrible, and it is so sad for me to see people who are so like who lack love and awareness for themselves and compassion for others. And when I see people like that have power, it makes me realize that even if Bitcoin as an ideology is incredible, that the world that we live in is broken. And unless we fix the people, and unless we fix what's going on in their heads and their hearts and their spirits, we're not going to create the change that we need to see in the world. Because at the end of the day, people are the solution and people are the problem. So make sure you surround yourselves with the right ones.
Yeah, well, I mean, I couldn't agree more. It's a theme that's come up more than once here. Bitcoin is great, but it's not going to solve the world's problems unless people start to be a little bit different. And you know, but it worries me though that when a new idea comes along and there's a new community and like Steemit, who has a, you know, at least at the beginning might have a community that's a little bit different than what people have experienced with Bitcoin. How do you keep the, I don't know, the hounds at bay, or how do you keep that from happening?
Ignore them. Steemit's not like that actually. So I've
so far so good.
I'm doing a meta analytical performance art piece that looks like real life, and it's using economic variables to describe how the world values women. And I have generally like not had, even the people that have said like not nice things, like someone like called me ugly or something, and I was like, wow, that's really not nice. Like I used to be bullied all the time and called ugly all the time when I was growing up. Like that's not a nice thing to say. And they were like, I'm so sorry, you're just what, and then they actually said, I'm so sorry, you're truly beautiful. I didn't ever think I'd have a chance with you. So I said that. Like that was the response and I was like, wow, I was like, I've never had someone troll me and then be emotionally honest with me. Like, this is a miracle, thank you. And it was the most emotionally honest troll that's ever happened. And, but generally the Steemit community is like, and I think the people who are skeptical are right to be skeptical. Like you should be totally skeptical. Like this is invisible magic money where you do nothing to make it except I put no money into Steemit and I have like $8,000 on there. I literally put in my initials and I got a cryptographic password and I got free Steam and then I continued to get more Steam. So yeah, people should be economically skeptical. But I think what people have to realize about Bitcoin is, and if you understand anything about Bitcoin, Bitcoin is the internet of money. And it's not because Bitcoin in and of itself is the internet. It's because what Bitcoin enables for money and value creation and exchange is the exact same thing that the internet enabled for the information industry. It is going to enable the decentralization and a wide distribution of community-oriented currencies that fundamentally redefine the way that we think about value in the world today, tomorrow, and the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, with communities like Steemit, like it's, yes, please be skeptical. Like if people weren't skeptical, then we're gonna have massive hacks and people are gonna lose money. So always be skeptical, never put more into anything than you're willing to lose. But like, we should be open to innovation. Like that's what Bitcoin is. And if people in the Bitcoin community aren't open to innovation in Bitcoin, you're literally just as bad as the people that most of them chastise for not being open to innovation. It's like you're just circular logic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of classic in that way. Like if you like anything in excess becomes what it's railing against, you know, that kind of thing. Like represented in literature through time immemorial, that dynamic where you become your own enemy, right? Anyway, well, that's some great perspective. I mean, obviously you run Cointelegraph, and
I don't run Cointelegraph.
oh, you are
Not anymore.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us, like, you found it, you started, yeah.
So I came into Cointelegraph. I mean, Cointelegraph existed before me, but they gave me the title of co-founder because essentially when the first conversation that I had with them, I started laughing and they said they wanted to hire me, and I laughed at them. I was the second employee at ChangeTip originally.
Oh, okay.
And I started laughing, and they were like, "Well, why are you laughing?" And I was like, "You want to hire me, but you don't have a business." And they were like, "What?" And I was like, "This is a blog."
Oh, that was ChangeTip.
No. This was Cointelegraph.
Oh, okay.
And they were like, "What?" And I was like, "This isn't a business." And I was like, "This is a blog. This is a blog with ads." And they were like, "Explain." And so in my first interview, I essentially described my first interview with them. I gave them the entire business model for what we created, and they were like, and so they gave me the title of co-founder, and I was their first CEO. And I came into the organization. Do you know what it's like to manage a team of 50 anarchists? You don't.
Yeah.
That's the answer. You don't manage anarchists because they're all self-managing. And so it's actually, what was awesome is that I instituted a holacracy. My first move as CEO was I totally changed the management structure so that I wasn't actually a CEO, because I came in and they were like, "She's the CEO." And it's like everyone raised their pitchforks, like there's an authority figure in here. And I was like, "Oh God, and she's a woman." And so I, instituted a holacracy there, changed the business model so it's more based on like equality and based on the amount of value you bring to the business. That's how much value you receive. I have not been the CEO of that company for like a year or longer now. And I am a partner at BitNation. I co-founded an organization called Kids Compassion. And I started it by doing disaster relief funding during the Ebola crisis. I had ended up having 1,313 higher efficacy ranking as far as number of lives saved during Ebola than the CDC. Ended up creating a charity adopting the orphan kids who had lost their parents to the disease, built homes for them, got them homes and an education, and I'm also creating businesses so they can have jobs after they finish their education, because really getting a primary education in Sierra Leone doesn't give you any kind of opportunity at all. And I'm also now instituting a national program for midwives with the national ministry, which should be interesting, working with the government of Sierra Leone. And I am also the blockchain specialist for the United Nations. So I will be teaching the United Nations. My first presentation to the majority of the heads of state, which is who the innovation department works with, will be in late October. And I should be covering trust economy, identity, and disaster relief funding, where I have a large depth of experience based on the refugee work that I've done. Not that I've done, that BitNation has done. Like BitNation is like 4,000 people, and Suzanne Templehoff is a powerhouse. So the work that BitNation has done with identity, the work that I've done with disaster relief funding, and everywhere in between. So that's what I've been up to for the last year, and I've had a bunch of people approach me and be really interested in, have been really interested in having me start a fund for these kind of projects and ventures. So
That's fantastic.
cool things on the horizon.
Yeah. Well, I'm really intrigued because, well, obviously you know a lot about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and that's something that, I mean, it's a whole world in itself. But it sounds like you're applying that to all these other things you're interested in.
Totally.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, it's you got. I would imagine you have to be quite visionary to do that, because I mean, people barely understand Bitcoin, and now like things like BitNation and, you know, tackling identity and reputation and things with the blockchain. It's like it's a lot, right, for people to get their head around.
You know, life is about living a great story.
Mhm.
And if you are able to take these massive and complex ideas and make them human, and make them into a story that people can feel, experience, live, breathe, understand, maybe even see, you can get them to understand, you know, something very big in a way that might be about something very small. And it's really that simple. Life is about connecting.
Very nice. And so you've moved on from Cointelegraph, and you're doing all of these new things. Can you just say, we're almost out of time, but can you just say a few words about BitNation, what it is for the people who don't?
Oh, of course. So BitNation is essentially Facebook for governance. It's do-it-yourself governance. You can make your own state. You can be a digital citizen of planet Earth. It's the only technology in the world that's been recognized as a state. We've been recognized as a state by the government of Estonia. We do all of the e-identity using blockchain technology for Estonia. And we also have a massive refugee identity program, as well as a governance implementation in place for the interesting and challenging country of Liberland. So yeah, that's a
that
whole
little
other,
little tiny.
And Liberland just gave Roger Ver his citizenship there.
Yeah.
I was reading just a week or so ago.
yeah.
Well, it's fascinating stuff.
Oh, thank you.
It's it's a whole new world of possibilities, and it's nice to have you here with us to share a little bit about it. I wish we had more time.
Oh, it's good to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks for having.
How did you decide to come to Bali? Is it I'd like to think it's because like you knew that there was like interesting stuff happening here.
And
Well,
interesting people.
Patronize me, please.
Oh my God, no! I love, like, Bali is amazing and beautiful. I actually came here because that band back there needed a vacation, and so we decided to come to Bali and
good choice.
relax and experience the beautiful culture here. And I also have some really dear friends that live in Bali and have a massive art villa.
Wow.
The Morabito Art Villa.
Yeah.
And so I knew this place is just incredible, and also came highly recommended by the Change Tip team. Who came here
Nick
for
Sullivan
their
and those guys?
yes. Who they came here for, I think, like a workathon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And they were like, "You've got to meet the community there. It's absolutely amazing.
That's
and Bali's
fantastic.
incredible."
That makes me happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming. Thanks for sharing a little bit with us. And I know you're on vacation, so we appreciate it.
And I just read it. I just happened to see a post that I thought that suggested that you might be in Bali, and I was like, well, what?
Good work, Stephen. All right. Anyway, well, we're over time a little bit, but anyway, thanks for coming, guys. Don't forget, we've got Bitcoin 101 on the 24th, and we've got Facebook in the meantime. So find your stories, post them there, and we'll do this again next week, same time, same channel. We'll see you then. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Well done, Gary. Like
Yeah.
a conductor of an orchestra.
Yeah, it's like a little one-man band.
Good on you. You get good filters.
Probably use another
Get good filters.
Yeah. I think you're
I'm happy that you're here. It's nice to see you. I didn't. It was like getting a birthday cake or a surprise party. Like I didn't expect to see
Oh, I
you.
thought you saw my post and I said,
You know, I
"So
did,
you're
but I
back, you
didn't
didn't
like.
click."
I didn't know I was gone. I didn't know if I was going to miss you or exactly what the time was. So.
Funny.
They
I leave
don't-
next
it's-
Wednesday,
It's membership
so-
only.
Yeah.
You don't have data plan on your. I can share
I'm
it.
trying to schedule
or-
massages into this week.
Oh.
Hair appointments and massage appointments.
Well, I want to like I don't know, get a coffee or something
Love
before you
that.
go.
Love that.
So it's one more week that you have on,
Yeah, I leave Wednesday.
so you can come one more night to.
Should be able to. I'll schedule my hair appointment around to be Wednesday. Yeah.
Awesome.
I was going to go straight from the massage parlor to the hair appointment, but I think it's going to, because I usually do a 5-hour spa before I go.
Uh-huh.
You
Oh,
know,
the 5 hours. Oh yeah, where?
at Shangri-La.
Yeah. I've heard about that. I've never done that before. Yeah. I would imagine after. Yeah, it's really sharp.
Thank you.
Deborah, I'm gonna track you down.
Thank you for listening.
Let's get a couple of.
Awesome experience.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Okay. All right.
See you for a while.
Just a week.
Yeah, this is Bali's first.